Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Xenos Rampant, science fiction wargame battles from Osprey Games, written by Daniel Mercy and Richard Cohen. This was kindly sent along as a complimentary review copy by Osprey and is a fully compatible with basically any science fiction miniature line skirmish wargame in whatever genre you choose. Now, Dragon and Lion Rampant, the fantasy and historical setting versions of this game, are very popular. And have led to a second edition right now for Lion Rampant, and I think one for Dragon Rampant coming, I heard whispers, maybe, in the future. And this is the much anticipated science fiction version, basically allowing you to create your own company level sort of like force and use whatever appropriate miniatures you think are right for you. You could conscript your existing collection or build a new one. So it kicks right in. It's 83 pages of, actually no, it's more than that. It's 184 pages, with the core rules taking up just roughly the first 75, and then a bunch of rules for sort of like the, I'm gonna put this in solar opposites terms. How sci-fi do you want your sci-fi? Are you gonna go super sci-fi or just a little bit sci-fi? So the Xenos rules are things like, kind of like fantastical sci-fi. You can add in things like cloaking devices and make them zombies, make them contagious, or like xenomorphs, so you can have chest bursters and stuff. Give them force fields and psychic powers, make them robots. Setting up the game, you have 12 different scenarios. You get a very brief but fairly fun-looking campaign section. And then the bulk of the rest of the book is divided up into giving it different genres and kind of like example armies. So like some basic campaign rules for like if you want to do Weird World War II, you want to do urban fantasy, you want to do like a future kind of apocalyptic war on Terra, post-apocalypse, or like space opera stuff. And it's not really to say that these are sort of like additional rules. It's more like, hey, look, here's all the things you can do by taking these core rules and just applying a genre or a setting or your sort of like fantastic mind to it. And it's very well done. The new rules that exist are basically stuff for scenarios or stuff to add to your campaigns. So that's why the campaign rules are kind of light. You basically can plug in the stuff from all of these to those campaign rules. And these are like showing you what's possible basically and what you can do to make your own. So let's jump in. Now, if you haven't played Lion or Dragon Rampant before, I'm gonna give a kind of brief overview on how the rule system works. It's very similar. But I'm going to focus kind of on what's new and innovative in this book that people familiar might be more sort of interested in. So it is a D6 based game, measures in inches. You want about 10 D6s. A 4x4 game area for playing a 24-point detachment is about right, which means you're playing on not really a skirmish size board, but sort of like the mid kitchen table size game table, and everything's done with that in mind. So when you make an attachment, you need between 3 and 12 units. Units are kind of at a minimum 2 points of strength and then at a maximum 12 because they get really elite. And you can kind of add and subtract and make your units more versatile. Bases, it's more a general guideline. If you're an inch tall, 25 to 30 mil bases. If you're a large vehicle or a monster thing, you can have an appropriate size base, what the rules say. And if you're really big, just measure to the hull or the body. Using small scale models, you could multi-base if you want as well and shrink the board size even. And then strength points and single and reduced model units. Sometimes in science fiction, it's cooler than having like a colonel and his bodyguard to have like one giant space marine captain. You don't have to use multiple models to represent like a heavy infantry elite character. So if, the game like kind of suggests that you use 5 models like a command squad, think of like in Warhammer 40,000 Knight Imperial Guard command squad. Strength-wise, that's the same as like one Space Marine hero. So use an appropriate miniature, you just track the strength points, which is kind of like the wound stat, in an appropriate way. And when they're out of wounds, they're gone. Because the game doesn't care if you're one model or a bunch of models, so long as strength is kind of done appropriately. Think of this game as more like Warhammer Fantasy Battle, where squares fought squares. You don't have to be in coherency, and the game isn't so obsessed with like ranges and stuff like that having individual models is going to count that much because you're going closest point to closest point for the most part anyway. And it just acknowledges that some models look better. It's science fiction, baby. So science fiction, you can have weird big things and multiple little things. Or even if like you're supposed to have 6 guys on a base, or 10 guys and you have 6, like, don't worry about it. Just start taking models away once the strength of it is proportionally down, and then just track the damage they're taking otherwise. Which I thought is a nice inclusion. It kind of just acknowledges, like, model collections aren't going to always be exact to this game. So just make the model collection you want and then use the rules. It's a really good toolbox rule, just kind of clunked in here, that I think makes it a lot easier. Because when you're playing this game historically, or you're playing it even in a fantasy setting, you kind of just want to paint the right number of guys to remove visually. But, you know, gene-enhanced super soldiers, you have a few of them and it counts as being 6 guys. That way you can have proportionally different looking armies and still have them fight and be balanced and make sense. Increasing unit sizes, can you do it? Basically, like, could you take a 5-man unit and make it a 10-man unit? Basically, dependent upon what kind of unit you are, it's a yes or a no. So Berserk infantry typically come in 5s, but you could make them 10s, but you can't make them 15s. Support infantry could be, you know, a 5-man unit, but not a 10 or 15-man unit. And then the basic way is that you visualize them at the strength they're supposed to be at, and you only start to reduce their output of, like, damage and stuff when they get below the strength they're supposed to be at. So if you want to have Berserk infantry, and normally it's supposed to be 5 guys, but you put down 10 instead, you just don't. They're always. It's like you're imagining a wound stat. It's the same as, like, reduced model size units. You're just imagining that they have, like, more wounds, and that their stats basically remain the same. So here's an example of an army. This is Daniel, who wrote the books. Gold 44 Tac Drop Platoon. Models are from a Space Lords collection. Some of the first sci-fi miniatures from the late 80s and early 90s, and it's now owned by EM4 Miniatures. So some classic sculpts. I think where the Space Rangers came from, even. The plastic Space Rangers, but cool models. EM4 makes those too. Rules for commanders. Now, commanders, typically you roll for a type of command trait. There's 4 different ones: aggressive, strategic, tactical, and warlord. And then you roll a d6, and the lower you roll, the worse it could be. When you're playing campaign, obviously, the idea is that, you know, it adds some spice and makes your army different. I love blue Hulk Hogan. This is a Cobblestone Castings mini that's very cool. And you get everything from, like, a tactical one's all about maneuvering, an aggressive one's all about, like, fighting in combat and not running away. Strategic kind of gives you, like, activation rules, bonuses, and then the commander one's about, like, rallying, keeping your troops in the fight. And, like, if you roll bad, it could be like you're Craven. You're all too aware of the inherent downsides of being a martyr. Your commander takes -1 of those courage tests. And your commander just attaches to a unit, doesn't leave it. Commander's always move and fight as an ordinary model. And basically your command miniature is, like, separate from the rest of your army. He's like a free guy. And you just plunk him into a unit. So commanders will always be the last model to die. They get +1 to all the courage tests and order activations for the unit that, within 12 of them. And then command traits may affect the above. They're only applied to the commander if they're in play and not suppressed. So think of them as you on the battlefield, and you get to add him to a unit, and he adds, like, it's like a warlord trait in 40k, but it could be bad as well, and you have to manage it. And then unit types. So now the basic core breakdown for unit type is what it needs to roll to do an order. So if it rolls every turn, like the activation structure is, you pick a unit. So you first test to see if any of your freak units, like your wild charge units, have to run in charge. Then you try and rally units that are pinned, and then you pick a unit, try and activate it, and you can have it either move, attack, or shoot. Some of the actions in this are free, which they will be able to do in addition to their activation order, but you have to do your activation order first. So if you wanted a unit to shoot twice, the first one for an elite infantry unit on a 5+ on a 2d6, it would activate and make a shoot order. Then it could do a second one for free, right? It could move on a 5+, and then the free shoot action, or it could move and then attack, right? There's a bunch of different, like, activation things there, but almost every unit in this game gets a free action they can do on top of the normal actions, which is a bit different from the other games. So it's always a 2d6 roll, and what you basically your training level is going to make that roll easier. And as soon as you fail one, that unit does nothing, and the activation passes to your opponent. So it's kind of an alternating activation game, but you're pushing how and in what order your units do things and trying to make activation rolls, and as you saw, your commander can affect that. Then you have your attack value, that's what you roll to hit in melee. Defense value, what you roll when you're being targeted by a attack action, so what you hit back on. Shoot value, so what you hit on when you're shooting and the range of your guns. Maximum movement, so 8 inches for these guys, and their starting strength points 5. You take 5 damage. Armor is your number of hits you take before you lose a strength point. So for every 4 hits they take in melee or from shooting, their strength goes down by 1. And then their courage is the basically when they rally, so 2d6 to do it. So 3+ for elites. You also have special rules, so like back into the fray. If they ever fall back, they're merely withdrawing to find a better position to assault. On the turn that a unit of elite infantry carries out a successful rally, it can take an ordered activation, which requires an activation test, even if it would only be a free action. So you can do all of your stuff. And then firefight, it's a new rule for this game. If someone shoots you, you can shoot back on a 7+ against the first thing that shoots you. And then ranger, this unit uses its normal attack, defense, and armor profile when fighting in rough terrain. Normally you get worse when you're disordered and you're fighting in rough terrain. Then there's your point value, so 6 points. So your army could just be 4 units of 5 guys who are elite infantry, and then the commander like parked on top of it for 24 points. And then you have all these different actions or different stuff like anti-tank, armor piercing, assault doctrine. And this is like the special spice, right? So that's like, hey, we have elite infantry, make them high-powered blades, make them like fighty guys, mobile. Through the use of exoskeletons, you get to make them jump packy. Super heavy armor, make them terminators. You go to armor 5, but your maximum movement's reduced to 2, or by 2. And then you get susceptible to anti-tank and demolitions. So like you can basically flavor your guys the way you want. Heavy infantry, so you know, same kind of idea. They're only 2 points per unit. Light infantry, 1 point per unit, and then the points are coming from all the options you're giving them to make them better. But I guess you could just take 12 units of heavy infantry if you wanted to, with armor 3. And then the more esoteric units we get into here, things like berserk infantry, so like melee dudes, support infantry, so like artillery and stuff like that, recon infantry, rangers and stuff. Primitive infantry, so like your Dragon Rampant guys are like dudes with like pistols and axes and stuff. Post-apocalyptic dudes. And then we're into the Xenos, and militia, sorry. And then xenomorphs, so like big bugs, little bugs. And they can be given options again, like big and ponderous or xenomorph range attack. And then they can also have any Xeno rule upgrades, so they can take the fancy stuff upgrades. Your army can have up to 1 fighting vehicle, and a fighting vehicle is like a tank or something like that, and then or transport vehicle. So the idea being that like you have something that's like a heavy vehicle or something that's a light vehicle, we only ever get 1, because it's supposed to be like a company infantry style game. And they're a quarter of your army. There's 6 points before you give them upgrades, so you're not getting a lot of activations then. And then you can have soft skin vehicles too, like trucks and jeeps and light stuff. You know, think of it as like land speeders and things. So uses regular D6s. Unit cohesion. Choose a model unit to be the unit's unit cohesion, and then all models must be within 3 inches of that model at the end of a move. So it kind of acts like War Machine, sort of War Machine style unit leader movement, where a guy in the middle and then you have a cloud around him, so don't worry about model placement too much. Can't come within an inch of another movement, so you can't move through one another, and then different terrain styles like rough, obstacles, obscuring, soft cover, hard cover. And impassable, cover just adds to your armor, so how many points of hits you have to take before you get damaged. And then like I said, what happens each turn? You have your attacker defenders in the rules for buildings too, you can shoot and blow up buildings. The multiplayer games could be extra actions, but basically it's whoever the attacker and defender are, attacker goes first in the first round, pushes until they fail an activation test, defender goes, pushes until they fail an activation test, and you go back and forth until people run out of actions. Wild charges are first. If you have a unit with the wild charge rule, you get a test to see if they run and freak out before anybody else goes, so it's kind of a bonus because they could just break the order of activation. And then, it's rally suppressed units, activate wild chargers, and then other order activations will happen. And like I said, it's move, shoot, attack, so it's pretty simple. There are certain actions that only certain units can take, like skirmish, fire support, it's like actions or go to ground, so like the Xenos rules could add those, or being a support unit. And then reactions like countercharge or firefight, which are skills that you can do if you're targeted by an action like attack or shoot against the first thing it does it to you. And basically after the attack's resolved, but before casualties are removed, you get to do the action back at them. Free actions, so most units have a particular specialization. This represents by a unit having a free action. When a unit attempts this type of action as an ordered activation, no activation test needed, and it activates automatically. So basically, what you would roll to do your first actions. If you wanted to shoot twice, you'd roll to try and shoot with a lead infantry in it, and the second one you'd automatically get because you already made your activation roll. And the idea with the free actions is there's something you do on top of your normal activation. So you'd activate test first, and then do your free action potentially second. And then ending your activation phase. If you fail a test to activate to carry out an ordered activation, if you've activated each of your units once, if you've tested to rally all suppressed units, tested all wild charges, and just not decided to activate any of your units. Just don't want to go. Movements based on your class, right? So lesser xenomorphs and soft skin vehicles go 12, greater and transport vehicles go 10. Elite, Light, Berserk, Primitive, Infantry, and Fighting Vehicles go 8. And it's on their stat card too. Units with like the mobile options can increase their movement by 4. And if they're slow, they can decrease it by 2. You can also go to ground if you have that special rule. You get +1 armor, and defense gets higher, or sorry, lower rather. Higher bad. And then shooting and combat are basically the same based on if you're above or below half strength. You're always going to roll 10 dice, and you're going to roll your shoot value. So like even heavy infantry are 6s to hit. So you never modify the to hit roll, but support infantry are 5s, elite infantry are 4s with like an 18-inch range. You're not hitting with a lot of dice, and then you're reducing strength based on the number of hits versus the armor of the target. So for every amount of hits you do equal to a multiple, you take the strength down by 1. So that's why like it sounds like 5 strength isn't a lot, but if you're armor 4 and I have to roll 4 6+ to do a single point of damage, it's hard to kill a single armor guy. The units are a lot more robust than you think they are. And then of course you can, like I said, if you have the firefight rule, which most shooting units do, you can then fight back, reduce strength points. That's called fire support. Some units can, as an order activation, make a shoot attack against a single target within line of sight. There's no penalties for range, and barrage hits on a 4+. That's the like artillery piece ones. And then attacking is the same, but you get to make a move, and then you get to fight in combat. So it's the only time you can come within an inch is when you attack. It's like these spiders. And that's it for the core rules. So it's pretty similar. Like the main differences are things like the reactions, a lot of free actions. Of course, so you can take test courage and stuff too. Roll 2 dice for a unit with more than half its strength points remaining. Roll 1 die for a unit at or below half its starting strength. So it's hard to pass your morale if you're below half. Add 1 if you're in cover. Subtract 1 for each strength point the unit's lost due to having the event causing the courage test. So basically, you have to make courage tests whenever you lose strength. You're penalized by how much you lost. +1 if you're in cover. +1 if your commander's within 12. And then if you fail it, but your final score is greater than 0, you must retreat, and you become suppressed. If you fail a courage test and your score is 0 or a negative number, you're just right and you get taken away. And a suppressed unit that receives another suppressed result loses additional strength point in addition to retreating. So you can drive units back further and further by doing damage and force them to fail retreat rolls. And sorry, you test courage even if you just take a single hit from a shoot attack, even if you don't lose strength points. So you can become suppressed even just from like being hit but not being damaged. And if you lose strength from an attack or other enemy action, try to rally. And if your commander is killed or retreating, then you can fall back and stuff. And then ending the game after the set number of turns from this scenario. So Xenos rules, you can get all kinds of fun stuff for your Xenos units, things like boarding shields, having a crazy good leader, combat medics and stuff. And then some of these upgrades are just the upgrades that units have, like Crusader, Demonic for the Xeno stuff, Force Fields for your commanders, Immobile, like you don't move, and they give you all special rules. Great units for Mantic, the Plague, become Psychic, or become a Mercenary. If you're a Mercenary unit, you get cheaper, but you might be bad. You might be reluctant or eager. Basically, it's like a commander role for your unit if you make them mercenaries. And then making your own powers and psychic powers, if you're going to be psychic. And then scenarios. Okay, so there are 12 scenarios. Oopsie. I skipped to the page because it's like stuck together. There we go. So you roll evens and odds, and then you roll a d6 on the table, and there are basically like all the classic style scenarios, like sweep and clear, a secret mission, going after a convoy, an orbital drop, bottleneck, a fighting retreat, night raid, diversion, recovery, VIP extraction, or a last stand. They cover all the tropes. They're typically played by a certain number of game rounds. Sweep and clear is just a simple one, +1 VP for each enemy unit worth 1 to 4 destroyed, +2 for 5 to 8, and +3 for 9 to 12. And there's no campaign rewards. Set up within 9 of an edge or 18 of a corner. The attacker then deploys in the opposite corresponding corner. There's a variant deployment. Each side deploys on a single unit in the table, and then everybody else comes on afterwards. Secret missions, you're trying to find out what each side is trying to do. So like an assassination, taking hold or prisoner raid, you don't declare it until afterwards. A ceasefire that erupts, an orbital drop where one side's on the table, the other side isn't. And the idea here is that they cover, like, if you've ever seen a sci-fi movie, you could fit almost every movie like scenario into one of these things. Getting a VIP, pulling somebody out, escaping from New York with the president's daughter, having a last stand, Saving Private Ryan style, and then campaigns. So campaigns, the idea is that you're trying to go to a certain number of victory points over a certain number of linked games, and then you have a career for your commander too, where you can earn career points if you do certain objectives and play certain missions. And you can spend them to, like, get rid of your bad command trait, get a new command trait, or make your detachment bigger. And then you end the command campaign when you get to a certain number of points. And so the idea is then we get into the settings, right? So like Weird War, Operation Werewolf. I have to say it that way. It's a law. And you can pick different nations, right, in that state. And then they give you certain options. And then these are all just example army lists that you could take based on the different, like, forces. The Occult Free Corps. Strange Foundation. Some things don't belong in a museum. The Strange Foundation sends their secret operatives. Werewolf Handwerkers. And then all the different werewolves. Red Army, Strange Research Group, Operation Paperclip. Urban Fantasy. This one has special operational rules for civilians and polices. So basically, like, when the things go horribly wrong, there's like an alien invasion in the middle of the city. So what was that movie called? Battle of Los Angeles, that kind of stuff. So you can have SWAT teams, Her Majesty's Constabulary, the Urban Cult, a Rural Cult, don't go down the backwoods. What was that one? The Organization, Dan Brown has no idea. $10, they eat rats mostly. And then this one's a War on Terra, so basically like a future World War III. With night fight rules, night vision rules, top tier military, second tier military, irregular military, private military contractors, insurgents and black ops. So like if you just want to take it like near future. Post-apocalyptic with limited ammo rules and primitive missiles. Zombie apocalypse, the dead rise. With like NPC zombies on the table and stuff like that. And you can have like the NWO. Tech barbarians, survivors, road warriors, addicted to gasoline, living dead. The angels disciples, if it's like a what you want to call it, a like angelic apocalypse. And then spaceships, so like boarding action rules for doors and decompressions, and then not being in vac suits. And then like all your special rules for like what would be in here: Xenos Rampant, space pirates and boarding parties, primitives, ancients, robots, your starship crew, Cthulhu aliens, and space marines. And that's it. So there you go. Appendix is basically just like your quick reference sheets and your stat cards. And that's Xenos Rampant. So another one enters the fray. A miniature agnostic sci-fi game. I'm excited to give this a go. I mean, I've got AT-43 minis I could play this with. We could try it with... Use my Infinity minis. I could play with like all my Infinity models. Obviously, I could play with 40K models. Tons of options for playing Xenos Rampant. I'm going to find out who wants to give this a go and give it a download and put together some forces. Get the sort of like models that haven't been on the table for a while on the table and try out these rules, because I think this one's one. I like the Lion Rampant where like I don't have like a handy historical army painted that I would want to show on camera. That doesn't look like garbage from when I was a kid. I have tons and tons and tons of forces that we could play this with. It would be fun to give it a try with. So I'm gonna have a look and see what I want to do, and we'll see this on the table in the future for Let's Play. So big thanks for watching, and big thanks for Osprey sending along the book to check out, and to Daniel Mercy and Richard Cohen for giving us another miniature agnostic game. Till next time, I'm Ash. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that video. There are tons of other games already recorded for you to watch. Click over to my channel page if you haven't already, and have a look through the dozens of playlists full of videos. I guarantee you'll discover a game you haven't seen played before. I put out new videos 7 days a week, and every day is themed to a different genre as I continue to explore the wider world of gaming. Of course, none of that's possible without you, the viewer, so click a like and subscribe if you'd like to stay on top of what's happening here daily. My two kids and I are massively grateful to be able to have the flexibility of this job so I can always maximize my time with them. If you want to support me continuing to put out this content, it's only possible because of my amazing backers on Patreon who support the studio, equipment, and model cost, as well as being how I make the bulk of my living. You can also help out by buying a t-shirt through Spreadshirt, a measuring gauge or widget from Death Ray Designs, or buying one of my games and supplements, like Last Days, Gamma Wolves, and Blaster. As a way of showing my appreciation, patrons get early access to new games and supplements that I write throughout the course of the year. Huge thanks for watching, it really does help out, and happy gaming.